Ladies and gentlemen, hello to each and every one of you. You are welcome to the platform of Awakening of Consciousness. The headline of international news, in terms of geopolitics, of course, is that France has decided to send a nuclear message to the Russian Federation, more specifically to its head of state, Vladimir Putin. That is France's objective. But there is a big problem. There is a serious issue at hand, and several questions arise, which means that the French do not agree at all with this nuclear message that Macron wants to send to Putin. The experts, the French military specialists, do not agree at all. Since, already, what is the nature of this nuclear message that France is going to send? To serve what purpose? And what could be the impacts on Russian perception? And how is Russia going to react? France risks finding itself in an unprecedented catastrophe caused by the young Emmanuel Macron. So, in light of everything that has been happening lately, France is very outraged against Russia. France, which considers Russia to be a threat to all of Europe, but especially to France, continues to believe that Russia will attack France in the very near future, and that Russia would not limit itself to France alone. Other European countries will be victims as well. So, instead of Russia attacking France, France wants to proceed, according to itself, with nuclear deterrence, by sending a nuclear message to Vladimir Putin. When we talk about a nuclear message, it is not going to be a simple written letter. No, nuclear message. So what will it consist of? Perhaps sending a missile somewhere in Russia, or just conducting shows of force by firing, by carrying out nuclear tests. But whatever happens, up until now, we do not know, at the moment, the exact content of this nuclear message that France wishes to send to the Russian Federation. But what remains clear is that experts and French specialists are sounding the alarm, warning the French people, making them understand that this new direction President Emmanuel Macron wants to take is very dangerous and is a path that leads directly to eternal rest. And eternal rest will not be limited to Macron alone. French citizens will bear the costs, and France itself will suffer, but seriously. So let's proceed with the official information, ladies and gentlemen. Here it is, the French army. The question being asked, does the French army really need to send a nuclear message to President Vladimir Putin? The question of sending a nuclear message to Russian President Vladimir Putin by the French army is a dangerous, complex, and sensitive issue. So, first, please share this video conference. Share the video conference. The French army wants to send a nuclear message to Putin. Thus, France possesses an independent nuclear deterrent force designed to protect its interests. And it is this nuclear deterrent force that France wants to use. But imagine, France only has 290 nuclear warheads, while Russia has how many hundreds of thousands? All right? So, the French doctrine is based on the principle of deterrence from the weak to the strong, aiming to deter an adversary from attacking France's vital interests. So, Macron wants to deter Russia, to ensure that Russia cannot attack France. But how does the French military intend to proceed? Well, what needs to be said is that the use of nuclear weapons is considered a last resort in exceptional circumstances. That is according to the French doctrine. It is the last resort in exceptional circumstances. Emmanuel Macron, who has continuously demonstrated to the French and obviously to the world that there is nothing left to do except to bring down Russia, wants to demonstrate, wants to show through this that France is in a very extreme situation and that it will be necessary to resort to nuclear weapons. What should also be noted is that according to the assessment of French experts, in the current context, the war in Ukraine, Russia has repeatedly mentioned the possibility of using nuclear weapons. French President Emmanuel Macron has repeatedly taken a stance on the subject by recalling the French doctrine and considering that France would not respond with a nuclear strike to the use of nuclear weapons by Russia in Ukraine or the region. So that means it has always been in a semblance. When France has always said, Macron has always said that France will not respond with a strike. But then, what type of nuclear deterrence message does France want to send to Russia? That is not a strike. So, what needs to be said is that there is a very major risk of escalation, according to the French specialists themselves. Sending a nuclear message could be interpreted as a major escalation. With unpredictable consequences, there is a real risk of an escalation cycle, where each party responds to the other's threat, leading to a situation. Here really, we don't know what the content of this nuclear message they want to send is. What is really the content of this message? But these experts beat around the bush. They say that if one of the parties tries to threaten the other, thinking it will deter them, that party will send the message. The other will also send their message. Ultimately, it will be from nuclear message to nuclear message, nuclear message to nuclear message. Ultimately, the situation risks becoming uncontrollable. Very uncontrollable indeed. So even the French experts are opposed to this. And the whole world continues to wonder, but what does Emmanuel Macron really want? Why couldn't this agitation focus on enhancing or revitalizing the French economy, which is in free fall? Couldn't he focus on the budgetary difficulties that France has been facing since 2023, which, by the way, led to the fall of its prime minister after the dissolution of the National Assembly? Can't France focus on peace? What is the deal between Macron and Keith Starmer, the British Prime Minister? What does he want from this world? Because, on one hand, the Americans, despite appearances, are fighting tooth and nail to bring peace to Ukraine, but both are hard at work to ensure the elimination of peace in the world and to call upon a spirit of conflict, a belligerent spirit. War is their pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the newsline for April 26th, 2025. So please share it as much as possible. I will be back with you shortly, by the grace of the Almighty, with new updates. This was the voice of your humble servant, Robert Théa.